to my second video on the Revell F89. In this video, I'm going to be dealing with some damaged decals. Now, I don't know what happened to these because I bought this kit for a very low price, and the bad decals came with it. The seller was very clear that these decals were in bad shape, and they really are. They look like they were in a flood. But I'm going to try to use just the ones that go in the cockpit. So we'll see if I can manage that. I'm going to be using some Microscale Liquid Decal Film. Now this is going to demonstrate what happens if I just cut out a decal from the sheet, the damaged sheet, and try to use it. It's pretty clear that the decal is just disintegrating. Part of it disintegrated without even requiring any input from me. If you touch it, it just comes apart. So there it is. Now the Microscale, I keep trying to say Microscale. I'm traumatized. Microscale Liquid Decal Film was made for this purpose. It's a very clever product. Now here are the decals for the cockpit. And they're a little problematic in a way because they're mostly black. And I was under the impression that the cockpits in these F89s were black, and if you put black decals on top of black paint, you're going to have a bad time. So I decided to paint the cockpit in the my own version of dark gold gray, which is what U.S. Air Force cockpits were painted in for in recent years. Now there's the bottle of the liquid decal film, and it's going to save the day, we hope. Those decals do not look like they're going to do well, though. That looks like we're going to have a very challenging time getting them to work. The liquid decal film has directions on the bottle, and it's really quite a product. It does have a bit of a smell, and when it's dry, I can't find any solvent. I mean, even lacquer thinner, I can't get anything to dissolve this stuff. Not well enough to clean a brush. So you're going to need to get a brush that you can use and then throw away. You can't clean this stuff out, or you could use a cotton swab. Now this brush here is called an acid brush. It took me quite a while to learn what these brushes were called, because if you just walk into a hardware store and try to get them to sell you one of these, they might know what you mean, but they might not. So you've got to learn to call it an acid brush, or you get a lot of blank looks. Acid brushes come in bags of 25 or 50 or 100. They're meant to be thrown away after use. So it's very easy to apply this stuff. It doesn't require any stirring. It doesn't require any shaking. You just splash it on there. It seems like that this would be some kind of universal decal prophylactic. You could just brush it on every decal. And for a while there, I went a little crazy and I did that. It's not a good idea. It doesn't react well with every decal. And if I were brushing this on some decals that I didn't think were headed for the trash anyway, I would definitely test it first. And as a matter of fact, I'm so compulsive about testing, you're going to find out that I'm actually going to test this too. But not right now. What I'm doing is painting the liquid decal film. Just put on a relatively healthy coat of it. And it dries extremely fast. Again, you got to put up with that kind of like kind of a strong isopropyl alcohol smell. Now this is a mixed my own mix of something resembling dark gull gray. It's mixed up in a gloss acrylic from Tamiya. And that thing I'm painting is, it says right on it, it says chip clip. It's designed to keep your bag of chips closed up so you don't, so animals don't get in there. You can keep your corn chips safe. It's a mix of, I don't know, about half white. I don't know. It's white and black. Anyway, it's my version of that color. And here we have one of the decals from the sheet painted with the liquid decal film and allowed to dry. And this took more than 20 minutes before it would come off. Really took quite a bit of work, but here it goes. There it finally came off. Now, I don't normally recommend putting decals on wet paint, but in this case I was basically in a hurry, and I still have the mentality that when I'm recording something, I'm using up expensive film. But there is no film. No film. No. Anyway, that decal, well, there's film on the decal. Yeah. Anyway, it laid down pretty good. I thought, all right, this is going to work. So here are the instrument panel parts from the Revell kit. Now, the decals for the F89D model were damaged beyond repair. The flood, hurricane, whatever that caused the problem destroyed those. But there are decals on there for the F89J. So what I decided to do was to use the decals and the panel for the F89J, even though I'm going to be building an F89D. And this will give you a pretty good idea what my attitude is about super duper scale. I just don't care. It's a panel. It's in there. I'm very different from the guys who always claim, they build in a complete internal liquid oxygen containment system and then close up the fuselage and you can never see anything that they did. 6 months of work, you can't see it. But they say, I know it's there. My problem is I wouldn't know it was there. I would forget. So I'm not going to build stuff into the model that I'm going to never remember anyway. So I'm not going to remember a year from now whether this is a D model instrument panel or a J. And I'm not going to care. In fact, right now I don't actually care. But I know I have the decals for the J, so I'm going to use the panel for the J, and, hey. I do have a backup plan if the decals don't work. But fortunately, I'm going to include a spoiler here. I don't have to go to the backup plan. Thank goodness. All right. Whatever, the decals, I do tend to use a little dish like this now. I used to use a bowl or, more water, but you only need a little bit of water. And you want to use distilled water or the equivalent. Chemicals in the water, especially if you have hard water or water with a lot of chlorine, that can cause a problem. So use distilled water or something similar, the purest water you can get. Use it for decals and for thinning paint. You can see I'm cutting this very closely because the less film there is on there, the less hassle. Now I want to talk about the Tamiya extra special fancy decal scissors I'm using here. Are they better than ordinary scissors? No, they're not. Ordinary steel scissors, these appear to be made out of some kind of alloy. I don't think they're aluminum, but they're certainly not very, they're very light. But they're peculiar. They're very peculiar. And it says right on the package, use them only for cutting out decals. Not for cutting plastic parts, I guess that's what they're getting at. I'm never sure what they mean when they say use it this way. I don't know. But do I feel like I got a good deal on these scissors? No. I feel like they were overpriced. Okay, we're going to start trying to put these decals. They came off rather easily. The test subject, 20 minutes, these came off right away, which gave me the impression they did not have any adhesive on the backs of them. Liquid decal film's doing its job, but some kind of adhesive has to be there. So I use Future. That's what I'm brushing on here. I'm just using a little bit of good old Future floor wax, even though it's not a wax. Nor is it a polish, technically. Nor is it a varnish. But Future, or that's not even on the market anymore. So why are we torturing ourselves? Future on a brush will allow these decals to stick, and they really won't stick well to a matte surface, which is why I painted the cockpit with a glossy paint. A little bit of Future goes on there, provides some adhesion. Then the decal goes on. If you want to move a decal around, get a file, one of these little files. Knife is too sharp. Paintbrush is awkward. Those little files are wonderful for moving decals around. I don't know why exactly, but they do. They do the job. Each one of these little instrument placards, you can see, they're mostly black, which is, again, that's why I chose to paint the cockpit gray. So it shows up like something rather than just black on black. And as I mentioned before, I think the cockpit color at this time, in the 50s, was black. But at some point, they did switch over to gray cockpits. I just don't know the exact date of that, and I didn't look it up. But they went from the interior green to black, and then later on to this dark gold gray color. Now this instrument panel, the pilot's instrument panel, is going to be a bit of a challenge because the liquid decal film didn't really, I don't know if I didn't apply it thick enough, or I don't know what's going on. It's sometimes the stuff just doesn't really do the job particularly well, and it didn't really work that well in this case. And I don't really want you to think too much about me dropping it in the water, but yeah, that was bad. That was bad. It's now wet, and we're engaged in a race against the clock, because that decal is going to start loosening up here. And I got to get this thing cut out of here before it becomes complete mush. And okay, thank God we have these special high-priced Tamiya decals. Oh, wait a minute, is everybody else loosening up? Oh, Lord. Once the decal situation begins to go downhill, you know how it is. They're just so, I don't know, they're so flimsy. Anyway, we're going to get this done. We're going to get this, even though, because we have the Tamiya special scissors, you know, we got the gear. unfortunately, even now, I'm beginning to see that pieces of this this particular decal are starting to come. It's starting to come apart. There is some cause for concern at this point. Spoiler alert, yeah, it's justified concern, because this decal is it's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to make a problem. Now I'm dealing with really a decal that's coming off of the sheet and coming off of the paper while I'm cutting it. So you're seeing me trim a decal while it's basically coming off the paper, as well as putting a decal on wet paint. You don't see either of those too often. Here we are trying to get that decal onto the part, and notice how it's disintegrating. Oh my gosh, disintegrating. I've got a brush. I've got some Future. The Future, by the way, acts as a kind of decal solvent, which is sometimes what you want, but it might partly be responsible for the problem here. I don't know. But the key thing is when the decal situation really gets hairy, you want to have your file, and you want to remember to breathe and just take it step by step. And remember that anybody who looks in that cockpit and starts nitpicking your instrument panel was never your friend. So you can just forget their opinion anyway. I mean, who cares? All right. Things are salvageable, but just barely. You know, I kind of like the way those, part of the decal flipped over, which meant that the instrument faces were white. I kind of like that look. I wish that all of the instrument faces had been white, and then I could have just painted the panel black. Because they have Future on there, I'm thinking that I'm just going to move these around, put them on there in some kind of a pattern, something that looks sort of reasonable. And it's okay. It's going to be okay. Just a tiny little nudge here and there. Remember, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. So we put that happy accident over there where nobody can see it, and we move on. There are the finished panels in the cockpit. All the various little decals have been applied, including the F89J panel for, I guess they called them navigators in those days. I don't know. Now, I inadvertently cut off the tab on the bottom of the pilot's instrument panel, but I decided to cleverly replace it with a piece of sheet styrene. So there's a little piece of white sheet styrene there that you can see that I've glued to the panel so that it will create a tab that will go down inside the hole in the floor of the cockpit. That's the plan. I think it would have been better if Revell hadn't put that little tab on the instrument panel in a way that made it impossible to figure out that it was important. I mean, I just wish they hadn't done that. I wish it had been a little bit more clear. Anyway, a little super glue, and we get the instrument panel in place. Nowadays, apparently, super glue takes hours to dry. It used to be it dried so fast that you could go back in time. Now it takes a long time to dry. I think that made everybody happier. I'm not sure it made me happier, though, but the super glue does take a while. So I'm positioning it, and I'm moving it around, and The question arises here is this going to look right when it's inside the fuselage? Am I lining this up? Is it going to be correct? Now, I like to use adhesives that are kind of flexible. And part of the reason that I'm using that little piece of sheet styrene to attach the front instrument panel is so that it gives me some flexibility. So I've got the two fuselage halves held together with rubber band. And I'm going to put the cockpit part in there and try to get it all lined up as it's eventually going to be assembled. And I want to see if I want to see if I'm anywhere near doing this right. Because amazingly, instead of an instrument panel that instead of an instruction sheet that explains what's going on, Revell actually provides us with hieroglyphics, which are just pictures and arrows and a bunch of symbols. So I know that, in this world of hieroglyphics, I better test fit it. So there it is, test fitted in there. And you can see how the top of the instrument panel slots in there in front of what appears to be some kind of combing. There it is. The only thing that really stopped me from getting that thing, the cockpit in there, were the pins that were supposed to help you locate it. Okay, there's the WISO or weapon system officer or perhaps navigator instrument panel for the wrong airplane, for the F-89J. And it's all glued in good and solid now. So, yeah, okay, this will be a DJ. An F-89 DJ, which we all know is great. And again, I'm going to have to fight the pins that are in there that are supposed to make it easier. God only knows, the pins are supposed to make it foolproof. I would say that 50% of the trouble I have assembling a model kit always will come from pins or slots or tabs that are supposed to make it easier. And those pins and slots, and here the pins are inside the fuselage, they're just getting in the way of putting the cockpit in there. They serve no real purpose that I can see. Somebody, I don't know who, somebody decided that this was essential, that you have to have pins. Yeah, I think that's a bit mad. Okay, so we want to get that lined up there, and we want to make sure that the other instrument panel isn't fouling the sides of the cockpit, so that the whole thing can be pushed up in there, glued in place, without creating a nightmare, without fouling anything. And there it is, fits pretty well. Now I'm going to paint that black, and I'm going to paint the top and sides of the instrument panels black. And we'll get some ejection seats in there. Why not? You can't leave those out. People will give you funny looks. All right. All of that to avoid buying an expensive set of instrument placards. Hey, let's move on to a special bonus portion of the show where I'm going to put those weights in the nose. Now, once again, we have, let's talk about the adhesive. This is our good friend, Testors Clear Parts Cement and Window Maker. I just think this is the best glue. And I've been told that it's just some kind of wood glue that you can buy for 10 cents a gallon or something at Home Depot, but I don't care about that. I'm going to buy this original testers. I am. I'm brand loyal. Now, I did some research on the internets and sure enough found out that you need supposedly 3/4 of an ounce or 20 grams of weight. So I weighed these things and got 20 grams. And I think that may have been a bit excessive, but hey. All right, I'm going to call that good. And thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being one of my loyal supporters. And check out the other videos that are going to pop up on the screen here shortly. And I will see you again soon.